In the heart of southern England is the county of Oxfordshire, and aside from its famous university city, it is home to many stunning market towns. But what are its prettiest? To establish this, I visited them all personally, and my conclusions are presented to you in this top 10 list. Cities are also included for consideration in this, which may come into play. However, villages are not, as there are just too many of them. As a disclaimer, this is neither a social commentary nor a guide on where's nicest to live. It is simply a beauty contest, judged by yours truly. So let's get straight to it. Number 10. Setting the benchmark for a spot on this list, amid some stiff competition, is a town named after a river, and one of multiple towns on this list to be used as a filming location for the TV series Midsummer Murders, Tame. With its distinctive boat-shaped high street, Tame features various different architectural styles, from the medieval St Mary's Church to Tudor buildings, some with thatched roofs, and the Victorian Town Hall from 1887. The town's name comes not from the River Thames, but its tributary, the River Tame. Number 9. Now to a town in the Evenlode Valley, on the edge of the Cotswolds, with nary a hair out of place, Charlbury. A market town since the 13th century, Charlbury developed a glove-making industry in the 19th century, but remained particularly small, at just over 1 square kilometre in area. This of course adds to its charm as a vision in Cotswold stone. Of particular note is the medieval Grade 1 listed St Mary's Church. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of Charlbury is that, unlike most entries on this list, it actually has a railway station. This serves as a handy counterexample to the beaching apologists who argue that a train station in itself leads to urban sprawl. Number 8. Continuing along the edge of the Cotswolds is our next entry, a town known for its various celebrity residents, as well as a former recording studio, Chipping Norton. The architecture of Chipping Norton harks back to its historic prosperity from the wool trade, from which various buildings were directly funded, including the medieval Church of St Mary and the adjacent 17th century almshouses. But the Industrial Revolution left it and other Cotswold towns unable to compete with the steam-powered textile mills of the North and the Midlands, the upshot being that they were able to retain their small-town charm. However, in 1971, Chipping Norton Recording Studios opened, giving the town a shot in the arm, as artists including Status Quo, Duran Duran, and Radiohead recorded here. Oh, and Keith Moon owned the Crown and Cushion Hotel on the High Street. Number 7. Now to the first of multiple entries from towns that used to be in Berkshire before the county borders were rejigged in 1974. This town is home to the last Folly Tower to have been built in England, Farringdon. With a market boasting 800 years of history, Farringdon retains a suitable amount of rustic charm. Architectural highlights include the old town hall, built in the aftermath of the Civil War, and All Saints Church, whose churchyard is said to be haunted by the headless ghost of a naval officer. The officer in question was allegedly decapitated by a cannonball, though records suggest he died of natural causes. You can't beat a good ghost story, though. Number 6. And now to another former Berkshire town. In fact, this was once Berkshire's county town, and yet today finds itself in Oxfordshire, one of a handful of towns claiming to be the oldest in England, Abingdon-on-Thames. Although the true title of oldest town in England will always be up for debate, it is safe to say there's no shortage of history in Abingdon. In the 7th century, an abbey was founded here, and a settlement grew around it. Although the abbey is long gone, one remnant of it remains. Well, kind of. Trendle's Folly may look like ancient ruins, but was actually built in the 19th century by what can only be described as Victorian trolls. But aside from the joke architecture, Abingdon boasts some serious masterpieces, including St Nicholas Church from the 12th century, the Riverside St Helens Church, which is equally striking when approaching from East St Helens Street, and the 17th century County Hall, designed by Christopher Kempster, who was Christopher Wren's master mason during the construction of St Paul's Cathedral in London. Number 5. Just over 10 miles downstream from Abingdon is its Thameside neighbour and yet another former Berkshire town, Wallingford. If history's your thing, you'll feel right at home at Wallingford, where you can explore the castle ruins free of charge. In terms of aesthetics, the town is situated favourably along the River Thames, with the 18th century St Peter's Church commanding the skyline, even if the church itself is now redundant. Then there's the Grade 1 listed Town Hall from the 17th century, with St Mary le More Church nestled just behind it. All of this provides the inspiration behind Corston, the fictional county town of Midsummer in the TV series Midsummer Murders, which in reality is Wallingford. And speaking of murder, the fictional kind that is, then it should also be noted that Wallingford was the erstwhile residence of the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. In fact, Dame Agatha lived here for over 40 years. Number 4. And now back to the edge of the Cotswolds and to a town that sounds more like a 60s music festival, Woodstock. This Woodstock has its origins from around the 12th century, when Henry II used the area as a base for hunting. It would later be the site for the construction of Blenheim Palace in the early 18th century. This is said to be the only non-royal, non-episcopal country house in England to hold the title of palace, and has been home to the Dukes of Marlborough ever since. But for those of us who live like common people, and do whatever common people do, a walk around the small town centre with its stone buildings, in some cases cladded with a healthy dose of ivy, is quite the feast for the eyes. Number 3. And back once again to the River Thames, this time for a right royal regatta town, Henley-on-Thames. Now there are riverside towns, and then there's Henley-on-Thames. This is, after all, the town that hosted the very first Oxford versus Cambridge boat race back in 1829. 10 years later, a one-day rowing event was held here, which snowballed into the annual 6-day summer event of the present day, the Henley Royal Regatta. But if rowing's not your thing, you can equally enjoy a riverside stroll amidst the various webbed-footed residents. Architectural highlights include St Mary's Church, going back to the 13th century, the Town Hall from the turn of the 20th century, and of course Henley Bridge, which opened all the way back in 1786. Number 2. And now we leave the Thames and head back to the edge of the Cotswolds. It's as if a pattern's emerging. Our runner-up goes to a town that appears frozen in time, at least if you ignore all the cars, the town of Burford. With a geographical area of less than 1 square kilometre, Burford is one of the smallest towns in the country. Its high street is at a somewhat steep gradient, with the river Windrush at the bottom. The Church of St John the Baptist dates from the 12th century, with a 15th century spire. The railway era completely missed out Burford, making it a little tricky to get to on public transport, although as a consequence it could quite plausibly be used as a filming location for an 18th century period drama. But as idyllic as Burford is, there's just one settlement in the county that tops it, which brings us to number 1. Now, I mentioned that cities are included for consideration on this list, and there is of course one city in Oxfordshire, one that needs no introduction, Oxford. To be clear, this was never a shoo-in for the top spot. In fact, I gave serious consideration to denying Oxford the number 1 entry, just to be an edgy contrarian. But that would be a betrayal of the world's second oldest university in operation today, behind Bologna. A university that was, after all, the alma mater of Christopher Wren, who contributed his architecture to the city, including the Sheldonian Theatre and the magnificent Tom Tower. Other iconic buildings include the 18th century Radcliffe Camera, the adjacent Bodleian Library, and of course all the college buildings themselves, including the particularly striking Magdalen College, with its tower dating from the early Tudor era against the backdrop of the River Cherwell. Thus, our top spot goes to Oxford, aka the city of dreaming spires. And those are my picks for top 10 prettiest towns and cities in Oxfordshire. Do you agree or disagree? By all means, let me know your thoughts in the comments. The plan for this series is to get around the entire country, so feel free to hit that subscribe button if that's of interest, and have a great day.